Welcome to the Power of Culture. I'm Mayassa bint Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. My nation, Qatar, is on a creative journey, supporting the talents of a rising generation, reaching out to other countries through the arts and building an entire cultural infrastructure. In each episode of The Power of Culture, I'm joined by a leading artist or architect, philanthropist or museum professional who is part of Qatar's journey. Listen in as we discuss what the power of culture can do. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the director of MATHAF Arab Museum of Modern Art, Zeina Arida. Zeina, you joined MATHAF from Lebanon. How has that been for you so far?
I would say it has been busy and inspiring. Living and working here in Qatar is a new context and experience for me. But at the same time, I feel it's also very familiar. The country is going through an important momentum, and there is an energy and excitement that somehow remind me of Lebanon in the mid-90s when I came back to Lebanon after having spent 10 years in France. It's for me, the similarities are mainly the very quick development of the art scene and the museum sector, building the design and the creative hub, the fact that the art scene and art community is quite small and that we have this challenge of widening the art audience. These are some of the common points, apart from, of course, a very common culture. We are both countries from the Arab world. Of course, our history is so different, but there are so many similarities too. And I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're bringing Lebanon to Qatar, aren't we? We have a big exhibition about Lebanon in the 1960s. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, sure. So it's Beirut and the Golden 60s, which has been shown at the Lyon Contemporary Art Biennale, is an exhibition that looks at an art scene and gives us an understanding of the cultural, societal, and political context in which the artists were working. It's a research-based exhibition that includes a lot of archives and documents, and it corresponds to my vision of how MATHAF should work on its collection, making it accessible and relevant to a diverse audience and enabling multiple ways of connecting to the works. And for me, it was very important to show this exhibition at MATHAF for many reasons. Of course, it's about Lebanon, my home country, but it's also a project that somehow links my life and work in Lebanon and my new involvement and life in Doha. So I was in conversation with the curators of the show, Sam Berdawil and Til Firat, when I was still working at the Surso Museum in Beirut. And somehow after I joined MATHAF, while thinking about my exhibition and program strategy for MATHAF, about how I wanted to focus on the collection, on the archive and the institutional history, it was suddenly clear that we had to bring this show to Doha. Sam and Til were the curators of Untold Re, one of MATHAF's opening show, and an exhibition that really marked the history of contemporary art in the region, I guess. And it's a very nice way for me to start my programming at MATHAF.
Now, that was a really great show, the Untold Retold. We commissioned artists from the Arab world and also had an exhibition on modern artists. And for the very first time, they were meeting in Qatar. It was really an incredible moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this exhibition includes one contemporary art piece, and it's a work by Jarna Hajitouma and Khalil Jrej. And the video installation is based on the CCTV videos of Surso Museum during the 4th of August blast. And of course, this is my personal story as well. So, that's all the different reasons why I think it's so important to have the exhibition here.
Tell us about the exhibitions that have just opened in 2022 at MATHAF. MATHAF has been very active with its exhibitions. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
We are presenting 4 exhibitions. 2 of them are the results of collaborations. One is Maja's Contemporary Art in Doha, and it's organized by Fire Station. This is an exhibition that showcases 32 artists who were at some point residents at the fire station in the past 5 years. And the other exhibition is a commission work from the Singaporean artist Tsu, who was invited by Rubaiyat Qatar to look at historical objects from the Islamic Art Museum in Doha. And it's almost a prefiguration exhibition for this new, very ambitious quadriennale that is to start in 2024 in Doha. And the two other exhibitions are survey and solo shows by two very important artists for the region. One is Taysir Batniji. He's a Palestinian French artist, and it's his first survey exhibition in the Arab world in a museum. And the other artist is Sofia Al-Maria, who's Qatari American, and who also is doing her first major exhibition in a museum here. I mean, both exhibitions are really very personal and at the same time share with us a historical narrative somehow. Taysir Batniji's work evolves a lot around his own history as a Palestinian exiled, living in France, and the fragility and impossibility for him to go back to his country. So a lot of his art pieces, performances, videos look at this absurdity. And one of the very touching work that is on show is this set of keys, which symbolizes his, actually there are keys of his own house in Gaza, and they are done in glass. So of course it's impossible to use keys in glass because it's too fragile and it will never open any door. And there are many other, I mean, Taysir Batniji's show is very, very emotionally, I would say, strong. Sofia Al-Maria's exhibition, which is entitled Invisible Labors, Daydream Therapy, is a set of stories that she has somehow collected and from different workers and people from different communities. In this exhibition, I would say she's really putting the human agent and anonymous individuals as the star of the show. So their stories become really what the exhibition is about. And one of the very strong installation is an audio piece that's called Oral Future. And it's a series of testimonies of different, mainly women from different communities who she asks about their dream, and they just talk about their reality and their dream in their own languages. Sofia Al-Maria was working at MATHAF in the few years before its opening. And for her coming back to MATHAF for this important show that's at the same time with the World Cup is a very, very important moment in her career. And she has a lot of also works and installations that use her own archive from that time when she was working at MATHAF.
Yeah, that really tells the story of her exhibition. I think it's an incredible exhibition. And Sophia did indeed start her internship at MATHAF. She won a few awards at the Doha Film Institute Film Festival. And now she's showing worldwide. I just saw her exhibition at the V&A building at the Venice Biennale. I know she's working on a few films herself now. And that's really part of what we do at the Artists in Residency Fire Station. The Majaz exhibition that I saw show works of variety and incredible different artists that are living in Qatar. Now, MATHAF is next to the Education City Stadium. We're very lucky that MATHAF is situated within Education City near the Qatar National Library and the amazing branch campuses we have. It's allowed for a lot of students and faculty to engage with us. We're celebrating 10 years of the Years of Culture with a focus on Mayassa. As an Arab woman director of MATHAF, the Arab Museum of Modern Contemporary Art, what would you want the key message for people to know about the Arab culture? I'm sure you've seen, like everyone else, the Arab world has been stereotyped and mispresented in various outlets around the world.
I mean, I really think that people should discover how the Arab world and Arab culture is diverse and complex. And I also believe that my role as a museum director is to contribute through our exhibitions, publications, and projects to the understanding of our identity and history. And that should really go beyond the false image that is vehiculated by the media. I mean, somehow what we do is also a way of reminding how much Arabs and the Arab culture and values contributed to the development of humanity. It's very important that we can view exhibitions. So we have an exhibition about Palestinian embroidery, a historical important exhibition. There is the Baghdad show at MIA. There will be a number of exhibitions that really enables this understanding. And I really hope that visitors will take time to go and see all these exhibitions.
So would you say that there's an overlap between culture and politics? And would you also say that through arts and culture and exhibitions, we can really highlight topics of importance to the world?
I'm sure, yes, of course. I mean, I really see art and politics very interrelated. I don't think we can easily differentiate them. At the same time, culture is a very powerful tool to bring some important topics and make people think about them and ask themselves questions. And this is why it's so important to be able to support artists such as, again, the case of Taysir Batniji, and give them opportunities to talk about certain contexts and political situations that are difficult to live as human beings, but that are so also universal in a way. I do believe that it's very important to use culture to bring attention to the important issues that we are living through, in our contemporary time.
I agree totally with that. And I want to go back to you. You managed your family museum in Lebanon prior to coming to Doha. And Lebanon has always had a historical, vibrant culture scene. A recent commission of Najla Zain has helped a lot of artisans and craftsmen at this very difficult moment in Lebanon. Tell us a little bit more about managing your family museum and the importance of countries like Qatar commissioning artists in places of great craftsmanship like Lebanon to support them and support the economy there.
I mean, yeah, of course, we have been experiencing for the past few years a very important brain drain. People are leaving the country, and especially the youth. And this is the biggest issue, I guess, beyond all the political and financial collapse. I mean, Najla Zain example is really a great one because this commission enabled her to work with several craftsmen who, thanks to the project, were able to sustain their family, but also to continue their practice. I mean, the factory could have closed perhaps in the past years if they didn't have this project to do. And I do believe that it's very important to give work opportunities to artists and their collaborators so that they also still have some hope and can still, sustain and make a living while being in Lebanon, because they are all leaving due to, it's a financial impossibility actually to sustain in the country today. And also, I believe it's very important that we keep on talking about Lebanon as a place for art and culture and as a, still an active city, whatever is happening. There are some art spaces that are currently opening new projects. There is exhibitions are ongoing. MATHAF Surso is planning to reopen early next year. So, of course, this is what Lebanese are known for. Of course, we are all fed up with the idea of resilience. And this is a word that we can't bear anymore because somehow we didn't have a choice but to be resilient and to start again and again. And the situation, by the way, reminds me of Taysir's performance and installation in the atrium, where there is this sand hill, and he's just moving the sand hill from a place to the other. And it's like this perpetual new start and just repeating the same thing all the time. This is Lebanon.
You are indeed a resilient country, and your people are very resilient. So I'm looking forward to the exhibition that's coming up in March next year with the 1960s. How do you become a museum director? As people are listening in today and aspire to become a museum director, what does it take for somebody to become a museum director for a place like MATHAF?
I mean, my story is a bit, I would say, unusual for someone who is now a museum director but I would say in summary, it's a lot of work, of course, and a lot of learning. I studied initially literature and theater and came back to Lebanon after in the post-war period. I was very, very excited and motivated by contributing to rebuilding the country and mainly to build institutions, because after the war in Lebanon, we only had the European cultural centers as places for artistic production. And I was involved in the founding of what became later one of the most important photographic archive in the Arab world, but also, I mean, worldwide. It's called the Arab Image Foundation. I was involved with a number of artists in this, the founding of this project. And I grew with the organization. So I was able to really work with artists such as Akram Zaatari, Walid Raad, Ito Barada, Lara Baladi, and many others, not only Lebanese artists, on this very pioneering, actually, way of collecting, preserving, but also rethinking the status of an archive, of a document. And the foundation was very interesting and kind of hybrid organization. And I was its director and I fundraised for it and really developed it for 17 years when I was there. And then I was simply headhunted when the Surso Museum was getting ready to its reopening after 10-year renovation and expansion. It was closed for 10 years and everything had changed in the art scene during those 10 years. And I was proposed this position. And for me, it was an opportunity that we really needed to grasp for the city and for the artistic community. And I really felt that by proposing this position to someone like me, you know, the museum and the museum's board was giving us a message, because there was a kind of generational gap between us and what this museum represented during all the post-war period when we were building the contemporary art scene. I mean, it was an almost impossible mission because I had to reopen the museum in less than 2 years. I came to Surso, it was only an empty building, collections were all packed, needed to go through different restoration campaigns. There was no team, no programs, no exhibitions. And so this was an incredible opportunity, both for me and for the city. I mean, this chance was giving us the possibility of widening the art audience simply because we either had galleries or art centers like the Beirut Art Center and other, initiatives, similar initiatives would show a lot of contemporary art which were not very accessible to an audience that didn't have really the chance of going through the history of art and being basically having the tools to understand very complex and conceptual contemporary art pieces. So somehow MATHAF Surso had this possibility of completing what the cultural ecology was offering, and through really programming that involved many other organizations, artists, universities, but also that looked at the different audiences that existed in Lebanon, we were able to very quickly become, again, one of the main platforms for artistic production. And this is great.
That's really interesting because many people actually started their careers from MATHAF, even if they were not artists. For example, I remember Wafha Al-Hajri, who has the brand Wafha, started her fashion brand by first exhibiting at MATHAF, then being discovered by Francesca Susani, the late Vogue Italia editor. And then she started her career in fashion. Now she's a full-time fashion designer and interior designer, and she's very, very talented. And then there's the owners of Mektaba, the children's book club, who started also at MATHAF and now have their own book club that runs independently from us, but they also activate the library at times. What does that tell us about the importance of museums? I mean, I feel like museums are spaces for empowerment. It allows people from any background and discipline to enter and become whatever they want to be, so long as they're passionate about engaging in a conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that museums are places for inspiration. And that's why I think that internships program are so important, because it actually can create vocations and pave the way to creative careers, very simply. And this is something that I want to develop further even. I mean, there are a number of initiatives already existing, such as MATHAF Voices. But beyond this, I think that we really need to multiply the opportunities for students, simply to encourage them to perhaps do some museum studies and art history. I really would like to develop a program of cultural mediators. So instead of having security staff in the gallery and the exhibition spaces, we would have young students who would act as cultural mediators. They would not only learn about artists and the artworks we are displaying, but also they would be the face of the museum towards the public. And they will, of course, be able to discuss with the audience and be able to give some, to answer some questions. They would give a more human face to MATHAF. And I think this is very important for me. I hope I'll be able to implement it soon. And I also believe that, we still need to be very open in the idea that art and culture, we don't need necessarily to have studied history of art or do museum studies to become an artist or a curator or a museum staff member. There is a lot of possibilities that a museum offers and that the art in general offer. And I believe that it's important to continue dreaming and believing about our own potential as persons and individuals. And this is perhaps what this sector offers and what it's so exciting for young people today.
No, absolutely. And MATHAF, interestingly enough, is a converted school. The fire station is also a converted civil defense building. We're just opening the NED, which is a former Ministry of Interior that now is turning into a hospitality hotel with a lot of artists from Qatar and the Arab world that we curated with the Soho House management. And the future Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is also a recycled building, which is the Flour Mill. And that's how we first met. You joined our scientific committee. In that process, you became the director of MATHAF. And for sure, there will be a connection between MATHAF and the art mill, as unlike any museum around the world of international, modern and contemporary art, Arab art will be at the center of the art mill vision. I'm very excited that we're opening an exhibition on the art mill with commissions of artists from Qatar, the region, and internationally to showcase to our audiences, both living here and coming to Qatar, what this museum will do, how it will add value. And you touch upon a very important topic throughout this conversation, which is the creative economy. As you know, the art mill will have a creative village to support the growth of the creative economy. The UN anticipates 10% of the world economy to be contributions from the creative economy. So tell me what you think about the Art Mill 2030, having served on the scientific committee, and how that will further enhance MATHAF's mission to support Arab artists from the world and give them a voice and a platform.
I think the Art Mill project and museum is an incredible opportunity to rethink the museum, its role, and the way it tells the story of the artistic practices. And of course, being located in Qatar, this is an institution that will be a really pioneer institution in the non-Western world. And the fact that we have this very important, MATHAF's collection is the most important collection in the world of Arab modern and contemporary artists. It's very important because it spans more than 100 years of artistic practice, but also it has for most of the artists, we have a body of work, not only one or two individual works. And this is, for some artists, we have more than 50 artworks. So this really gives us the chance to study their practice, understand how their work inscribes in the more global history of art, but also look differently at their foundational actually work. And I mean, the art mill gives this possibility. It's like we somehow being part of the conversations as a member of the scientific committee. I find it really a great opportunity to dream about this future museum because, of course, we've been thinking, I mean, for the past 10 years, museums are reconsidering history of art narratives and this Eurocentric way of looking at actually the global art, but at the same time being able to open this museum in the region, in Qatar, also makes it a very different opportunity. So, and I do think that this collection, MATHAF's collection, can really help to unfold so many different narratives and just open our horizon about how do we consider the modern, for instance, period in the history of art. How do we really hope that by having MATHAF's collection at the heart of Art Mill, we will finally look at Arab artists as, you know, as artists who have contributed as much to the history of art as other artists. For instance, I always remember about Maqbool Fida Hussein, who is compared to Picasso. I mean, people talk about him as being the Picasso of India, but after all, there is no proof that he actually started working and he was inspired by Picasso. We don't know, maybe Picasso was inspired with his work. So that's a small anecdote to, you know.
That's really interesting. Who inspired who? Was it Picasso who inspired MF Hussein, or was it MF Hussein who inspired Picasso? And that's really an important topic that you bring, because right near MATHAF, Qatar Foundation, with the vision of my mother, Her Highness Sheikha, they're building an MF Hussein museum as a legacy project. As he spent his last years in Qatar, he died a Qatari, and he also has been commissioned by my mother to do his last public art work nearby, between the Al Shagab horse stables and the golf course. In fact, later this next week, we have our Emerge dinner with Naomi Campbell to set up our creative economy fund to support African designers in the same way as we have done with Arab designers. So it's a really good point. It put things back in perception, because there's always this misconception that we are importing culture and that we're taking things from the West into our own cultures, when in reality, many of the greatest Western artists, such as Paul Klee, Pablo Picasso, Henry Matisse, have been very much influenced by Islamic art, Islamic culture, Islamic civilization. So that's very interesting. And I think the expansion of MATHAF's mission via the Art Mill 2030 project will allow us to create these conversations and to really create research opportunities to see how artists from our part of the world influenced the artists from different parts of the world, and vice versa. And this brings me to a really interesting point. As you know, we've put a lot of public art around the country from different parts of the world, from Europe, from Asia, from Latin America, from the Americas. How do you think international art nurtures local talent?
It's very important to give opportunities to young and emerging artists to understand how their work inscribes in a larger context. It's always inspiring to view artworks, especially for artists, and mainly when they are conceived by, significant artists who have marked the history of art. It's also, I mean, artists usually really think and work in a very specific context. And at the same time, through their work, they tackle to universal issues. They react actually to our contemporary times. And it's very important that they also are able to see beyond their own perspective and context, because actually this is what art is. Art is really about connecting people together. It's about enabling us to be part of where we belong to, where we live, but also it gives us hope actually to see that the world is so much bigger than our own horizon in a way. And I think that the number of public art that is on view and available in Doha is very impressive. I do believe that this is part of course, cultural policy. It's a part of a vision that will certainly contribute to make art part of the daily life of citizens. And I think that this is what we all dream of, right? I mean, all museum and people who work in the cultural sector, we would really like to not to need anymore to convince people why it's important to see exhibitions. Art is like music, is like cinema. It's for people like me. It's really part of my life. But we've all dreamt for so many years that it would become part of everyone's life. And I do believe that public art is a way of doing so, and of basically raising the interest and curiosity to go and further and view exhibitions and what the museums have to offer.
It's very interesting you say that. Whenever we install a new public art, the reaction from our audience is often mixed. I remember when we installed the Urs Fischer bear at the airport, many people criticized it as non-Qatari art. But very shortly after, it became an icon for the Hamad International Airport. It became an icon for the country. And now the same. We've just started installation, some work for the football, including the Lalan sheep. Everyone is saying they don't look like Qatari sheep, but not realizing that's not the purpose, because Lalan is a very important artist. It was a combination, as you know, of husband and wife. These works were bought many years ago for the future art mill gardens. And there is a connection that, the sheep and the lamb are very important in our culture, but the idea is always about creating conversations. Recently, we started installing the Kusama exhibition, and people are saying, why are we covering the palm trees in the Kusama polka dots? Not realizing how important she is as an artist, that she's an artist working in a mental institution right now. She's above 90 years old. There's high demand on her exhibition worldwide. We were able to convince her to bring this exhibition to Qatar on the occasion of Qatar-Japan's 50 years relations, but also for the World Cup, as Japan has also qualified. So it's really interesting that these activations create conversations and allows people to understand why it's important to understand the evolution of art and the history of art in order to create authentic new art. I mean, today we have some great Qatari artists creating public art installations, exhibitions. They're getting amazing commissions, whether in private homes or public institutions. And I think that requires a clear long-term vision and consistency and being really persistent in that conversation. I want to ask you about this very important topic that we always speak about, which is the audience experience and the importance of connecting people to the realities of today. And I think those kind of conversations where the first reaction is negative, the first reaction is rejection, but then they engage in a conversation once they understand why certain things are curated in this way. As we complete our 25-year plan to align with Qatar Vision 2030, they start to understand it and they engage. And that's, I think, the big difference art can make. And as you said, the power of culture, which is the title of my book, as well as the title of this podcast, is really, I think, so important.
I believe that as one of the main museums in Qatar and in the Arab world, MATHAF should be a platform for multiple artistic visions and approaches. I was always keen to not have what we call a chief curator or a very clear or one pure artistic direction for a museum, because it's so important in contexts such as ours, that where you don't have like 15 art museums. It's so important that we really show the possibilities actually of curation, and that we don't stick to one kind of exhibitions, one kind of, artworks and artists. I mean, this is why I really like to work in a collaborative way. I think that we are going to be more and more involving local and international emerging and confirmed curators. And it's very important because actually the role of a curator can really be determining in the way the visitor feels at ease or not, in the way the visitor can relate to the artwork or not. I mean, when a curator is very didactic, he doesn't really allow actually the visitor to appropriate, interpret, and and make somehow take an ownership of the work he is viewing, because this is what art offers us. I mean, artists, of course, say an artwork is very individual because there is a person behind it that is thinking about his own perspective. But at the same time, what is so incredible is that we can interpret and really make our own use of this message and artwork.
No, I think it's very important. And 2024 is going to be a very important year for us. You mentioned earlier that there's an exhibition about rubaiyat at MATHAF as an introduction. We'll host our first rubaiyat exhibition, which is our quadrennial, and it's going to focus a lot on regional artists. It's depending a lot on the MATHAF encyclopedia for research on artists from our part of the world and commissions as well as exhibitions. And we also have our design biennale, which will also happen in 2024, in the spring of 2024. And one of these projects is a playground that's going to connect MATHAF with the adjacent school of Qatar Academy Sidra, which is, again, part of our work is to commission projects for legacy, meaning that they stay beyond the event itself. So I know you're very excited about this project. Would you like to say a little bit, some of the, designers we've shortlisted look very exciting. So would you like to talk a little bit about this new playground competition?
Yes, of course. So basically, this is a conversation that we started together when you actually, soon after I joined MATHAF, you mentioned that your idea of breaking the wall that is between MATHAF and the Sidra Qatar Academy. And actually, symbolically, the idea of having a playground, or what we like to call now play scale, because we think about it as a place that is actually catering for children, families, but also adults. And this symbolizes a real link between a school and MATHAF, but also between MATHAF and Education City. It's also a great way of actually thinking about, the experience that a museum can offer beyond exhibitions. And also for me, it's important to collaborate with Design Doha, because I think that design, architecture, graphic design is really part of our culture and should be part of modern and contemporary art museum activities, very simply. And this play scale, there's going to be a competition that will be launched that will be open to designers and architects from the region. And this play scale, we are working on the brief of, what would this play scale offer as possibilities, both for the, users, the visitors, but also for MATHAF. How can we activate this outdoor space? In a way, it's how we can really expand the experience of the museum and how we can really think about the museum as a place for education and fun, not only for exhibitions. So it's a very, very exciting opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think this is a very nice way to conclude our conversation. We are introducing so many new playgrounds for families to play and learn. Qatar is a family destination, and I think there's no better way to engage families to learn and to play and discover the world around them, but through culture and art. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.